Well, hello guys. Welcome to DES 109. This is going to be our digital advertising week. We're going to be talking about advertising and hierarchy and ad design. We're also going to be talking quite a bit about the week 3 assignments. Have any of you had a chance to take a look at them yet? They are going to be a little time consuming, but hopefully we can shave off that time a little bit. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how you can cut back on the time spent and hopefully have a little bit of fun while we're at it. So let's talk about week 3. Here's our overview. We're going to have our lecture, of course. Thursday, we have the multi-session. Now, we're going to be kicking this off by finding creativity. We're going to be talking about sources you can go to find creativity and inspiration based off of your design era that you've chosen. We've been talking a lot about this, and this is just a build-up of over the last 3 weeks. So please remember to post your initial post by Wednesday so it's not considered late. And then Assignment 3 and Assessment 3 are going to be a lot of fun. I love mood boards. They are so much fun. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at what Assignment 3 is, we'll go over that quite a bit in detail. I'll even demo these 2 assignments for you, and I'll do it at the beginning of class for those of you who have to jet for bedtime. I know some of the East Coasters, it ends late. But we're going to be learning from the past, and we're going to be taking our inspiration from historical designers from the graphic design eras that we've been studying over the last 3 weeks. You're going to pick a graphic designer. There's a pre-approved list that's given to you. You're going to download that file, and I think there's about 10 designers that you can choose from. So you'll pick one, and then you're going to design a mood board around that designer, their work, and their their design trends and anything else that is characteristic of that era and that designer. Then Assessment 3, we're going to be talking about design and social media. We're going to kind of delve into the digital media sector a little bit. And we're going to be creating, I believe, three ads in Photoshop. So Assignment 3 will be designed in InDesign or Illustrator. It's up to you to choose. The demo will be done in InDesign today, and then the Assessment 3, you'll be designing the ad designs in Photoshop. So a lot of fun. Hopefully you all have some experience with these programs, but as always, please reach out to me if you have any questions at all. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to go over in week 3. So let me start the video, and I will say hello and introduce myself. I will say hello again. There's that big trampoline in the background, and I promise by week 4 it will be gone. But graphic design is a visual communication, and so we're going to be talking a lot about that. We're going to be combining shapes, imagery, color, and type, and designers are going to be able to, and the point here is that designers need to convey a particular message from a client to an audience in a way that's both memorable and unique. That's the overall goal here, guys. Over the course of the next 4 weeks, we're going to both be learning about the history of graphic design and make our own unique designs. So as a way to introduce yourself, we asked that you communicate yourself visually. That was in the Introduce Yourself section of the course homepage. But we're going to go even further and start talking about the design trends that appeal to us and finding and designing a mood board around a historical designer. So let's talk about our learning objectives. So we're going to identify and apply the basic elements to support the 4 principles of design. So remember, we learned the 4 principles of design was the CRAP model: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity, and how we talked about each one individually. We're also going to be discussing the application of 3 historic and 2 contemporary design inspiration sources, and that can be found in the discussion as well. And then we're going to be composing digital content to communicate an idea and make a statement. You're going to get to design an ad for the web. And we're going to be designing graphics to support the current graphic design discipline trends, and we're going to relate this to social media. So a lot of good stuff going on here. Have you guys had a chance to take a look at what's going on in week 3 at all? So basically, in this week, we're going to be continuing to learn about and be inspired by graphic designers of the past. So we'll also begin learning about one of the newest areas where graphic designers are beginning to enter, and that's social media advertising. If you've ever been on Facebook or a social media platform, even Instagram, there are, if you notice those ads that kind of pop up, more so on Facebook than Instagram, but you'll see based off of what your interests are and the cookies on your computer, you will find those pop-up ads or ads that are kind of advertising to things that you enjoy and you like or are interested in. So though most of us probably use social media on a daily basis for personal connections, have you ever thought about how a business might use it to personalize themselves? How could a business use social media or online advertising to personalize themselves? There's been a huge push lately, businesses jumping on the Facebook bandwagon, even Instagram. We're going to be kind of addressing this a little bit. Yeah, so maybe to hire people. That's a great suggestion. So maybe they're reaching out because they want to get the word out. Maybe they're hiring. Also, maybe they kind of trying to be a little bit more relatable too. If you're choosing between product A and product B, but product A is the one that's constantly on social media, very relatable, you kind of start leaning towards that product. All of a sudden it starts becoming something that's top of mind, meaning you think about it a lot, or it's on the mind, or when you see a product, you automatically think of that brand. So that's kind of how they personalize themselves. Another question might be how a designer might be involved. How is a designer involved in this personalization when it comes to online advertising? What do you think? So to investigate, we're going to watch a video. It's a short animated video. It's like a minute and a half on the top 10 benefits of social media marketing. So if we're not very familiar with this topic, we're going to get up close and personal. So I'm going to go ahead and share my video real quick. And you just let me know if the sound doesn't work, but hopefully everything comes in loud and clear. Okay. Got that. What are some of the reasons why companies are now going digital on social media platforms? What do you think? What are some of the phrases that kind of stuck out? Less marketing costs. Yeah, that's true. Exactly, because it doesn't cost much to, to go on Facebook. And in fact, that's free unless you're paying for ads. But yeah, very, very little cost involved. More communication. Absolutely. You're reaching a larger audience, a more broader audience, and you're targeting people. There's more conversions. And also you're kind of getting, people are more aware. It starts creating brand loyalty, because not only are they aware, they kind of feel like connected to that company or you as a company. and then they start purchasing your products, that they kind of stick around. So lots of reasons why. So this is a super cool video. I love it. It's very interesting, the benefits that social media marketing offers to companies that want to advertise. So whether it's you going into business for yourself, or whether you're designing ads for a company who are, there's a lot to consider, and there's a lot of reasons why people are kind of jumping on this bandwagon. We're not in week 2. So there's a quote I'd love to share by one of famous designer, Paul Rand. He said, design is so simple, that's why it's so complicated. So very interesting how design is simple, and the simpler it is, the more appealing the design is, but it is so complicated because there's so much that goes into it. It's a science, it's an art. There's a purpose to every placement. It's not abstract where you just throw stuff on a page and abstractly place them on the page. You're actually purposeful with where you place, and we talked about elements, and we talked about the design principles. So yeah, it's kind of a science, which kind of complicates things. But design is simple, and the simpler it is, the more effective it is. So let's talk about our week 3 assignment. I'm going to be demoing this a little bit, but we are going to be talking a little bit about what a mood board is. Are there any guesses about what a mood board is? Have you ever seen one? So over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be working on a cumulative project in which you're going to be designing an event poster in the style of a historic designer. This week, we're going to conduct visual research and create an initial layout. So in week 4, we will refine and finalize the poster based on the feedback that I give you. But for the part 1 of this assignment, this week, we're going to we will begin to work on an event poster designed in the style of a historic designer. So again, they're given a list. There's a list that you download. So choose a designer from the folder download, and then you're going to create an 11-inch by 17-inch mood board. And and I want this to be inspired by the designer's work. Then we're going to create an 11-inch by 17-inch poster based off of this mood board, off of the content, off of the design inspiration. Then you're going to create a Word document that contains a reference link, and you're going to include that in your poster, or I'm sorry, in your file. So you're going to use an Adobe Illustrator or Adobe InDesign for this part 1. I will be demoing this assignment in Adobe InDesign. And then you're going to submit a multi-page PDF. So again, there's a folder to download. Inside, you're going to find a list of potential designers along with the required poster content. You will need to use the actual content they provide you, which makes your job a lot easier. You don't have to provide content. That's kind of cuts out a lot of time. Once you choose a designer whose work you're inspired by, now note, if you would like to choose a designer who's not listed on the list, you can email me, but I would like you to stick to the list if possible. I want you to conduct research on your designer. The reason why we have this list is because there's more information available, and it makes your job a little easier. So kind of try to stick to the list if you can. But I want you to note how they use the design elements and the design principles. Consult week 2's discussion background if you need a reminder of what these things are. But with the mood board, I want it to be inspired by the designer's work, okay? Title the mood board with your chosen designer's name. That'll be the title of it. And then this mood board should contain color scheme examples, typography examples, imagery that were created by the designer. And I want you to use, again, pick your software program that you're going to use, but create a first draft of the poster. You'll get feedback this week on the poster, and then I think you're going to be tweaking that for our final project in week 4. So you're going to be applying those changes that I give you. Now here's a cool note. If you do make the changes that I give you after we get the grades back on Monday morning, you can not only resubmit week 3's work with the changes, but you also will get a better grade on the final. So you kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. So if you haven't been resubmitting work after feedback's been given, please take advantage of it during week 4, because this is a huge part of your grade. Now when you're finished, submit your mood board and your poster and your reference list as a multi-page PDF. Now the assignments requirements are up here. You're going to use the designer's name as the mood board title, And make sure this is single letter sized Word document listing the website references I used for the research. And just save your file as normal, DES 109 assignment 3, and then your first and last name, and then submit a multi-page PDF as per the instructions in the week 3 assignment. So if you have any questions, just kind of refer back to your week 3 assignment information. But this, let's kick off. Again, we're going to talk about the mood boards before I jump into the demo. Real quick, our week 3 assessment, this is really fun. Use Photoshop, okay? This is going to be a Photoshop assignment only. Remember to consider readability. I've talked a lot about cool fonts are really fun to use, but can hinder readability. So if you find a fun font, make sure that you only use it for 1 or 2 parts of your design and not for the entire thing. That's why we recommend doing 1 to 2 fonts for a design so that you have some contrast, some visual interest there using the type, and it's easier to read. So pick a font that's easy to read, and you can pair it with a fun font if you want. But make sure you ensure adequate contrast here. We don't want sans serif and sans serif. We want enough contrast there. So each image should be 1200 pixels by 628. I'll show you how to set your document up, and you're going to create 1 Photoshop file with 3 artboards. So remember, you're going to have the 3 artboards within your Photoshop file, not 3 separate files to submit, okay? And then use free stock photos like Pexels or Unsplash. I found cool photos off of Pexels.com, and this is a really nice, they have really nice photography for free. So feel free to use your own imagery if you're a photographer, or if you feel like something fits the bill. Are there any questions so far? I know we're kind of moving quick. We just have a lot of design demos to do. But I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up. Okay. No questions? We'll move on. So let's talk a little bit about what a mood board is, okay? Can anyone tell me what a mood board is? Have you ever seen one before? Creating a mood board is a lot of fun. So a mood board is a tool that's going to help establish the style and the brand identity of your blog design or logo. The mood board is a combination of images, whether it's photographs, graphics, patterns, colors, textures, fonts, and words on a single page. So it's just one page that reflects your desired brand position or identity. And in this case, it's going to reflect the historical designer that you chose and the era that they designed in. And together, these elements provide a visual example of the desired brand position, meaning it imparts the energy, it sets the mood, hence the name mood board, and the spirit that you want for your brand or your blog or your website or your ad, whatever it is that you're designing. And in this case, for your poster. So lots of interesting stuff here. Let's take a look at 2 mood boards. I'm going to move this one over and kind of expand this one so that we can see. I want this to inspire you. These are a little girly, but my demo won't be so girly. Okay, I promise. All right, so here, let's look at this basic template. It's kind of the same thing to the right. It's in fact the exact same template, the layout. So they've got 3 pictures going across. They've got 2 pictures on the bottom, and then they've got the swatches being used with the logo, with lettering that is going to be indicative of the design. They've included fonts. So there's a lot of things that you're going to want to include here. Why are mood boards necessary? Why do you think they're so important? Whether you are ordering a logo design or a theme design for your poster, or you want to make sure that your message comes across clearly to your intended audience. Oftentimes it's difficult to communicate visual ideas, even feelings and images. I myself am a very visual person, and I notice that I much prefer to express these thoughts and ideas in visual form. So mood boards really speak to me. That's probably why I spend more time on Instagram than any other social media platform, but that's neither here nor there. But while the design questionnaire is very important, and I do use it as a reference whenever I work with clients, I just kind of keep a questionnaire open when I talk to them about what they want. The mood board is not any less critical. So what it does is it helps you think about the kind of brand identity that you want or that the client wants. And it helps me to see, or the designer to see, exactly what direction we're going to go with the design. So this makes it more likely that whatever design we come up with will be exactly what the client envisioned, and hopefully just what you wanted as a designer. So I love it when clients say, it's like you can read my mind, and this is just what I wanted and more. And so it's not telepathy, although I really wish I had that talent. That would surely save a lot of time for sure. But what it is it's setting the mood. You're gathering inspiration and you're translating it on a page. So as you can see, these mood boards are set in the same exact template, which will be the template we'll be using for our assignment 3. 3 images, couple images across. You've got the circle that creates the pattern, the texture of the ad. 2 images at the bottom, and they've included some typography. This is the typography that's going to be indicative of the design. And then you've got your color swatches here at the bottom. Again, logo. So these are really fun mood boards. So there's a lot of things you want to include: textures, fonts, patterns, colors, graphics, and photography. All of these elements need to go into your mood board. So how do you create a mood board? What are some things that you need to do? And in this case, where would you start? Any guesses? So first thing you'd want to do is gather inspiration. Okay, so scour the internet, browse magazines, go window shopping, take screenshots, download images, take photographs if you can. Do your research. Create a folder on your computer and save all of the images there. Pinterest is a fantastic source of ideas if you want to save time. Google also is a great place to scour if you need images. And you can keep, just keep these pins and these images in a folder for later. Search for keywords so that you'll find what you're looking for without getting overwhelmed. Best place to start is the name of the designer, maybe ads that he's designed, or the themes of his designs, or maybe what era he or she grew up in and designed in. Step 2 is to edit. Don't just collect, curate. Carefully choose the ones that best convey what you want and take away those that don't really do the job. Remember that what you remove is just as important as what you choose. It's like telling a story, and that's what we want our mood board to be. Sort through what's relevant and what's not, identify and refine. So edit it back. First, gather the inspiration and then edit your content. Then step 3 is creating your board. So use whatever software you're comfortable with. In this case, you can choose between Illustrator or InDesign, but please be sure to choose one of those, and then start with your layout. Now, when working with your layout, if you're doing your own mood board, which you'll start from scratch, you're going to arrange the images in a grid if you want to be OCD like me, or you can do a loose collage if you prefer a more free-flowing style. There are some design eras that would kind of warrant more of a free-flowing style, like the psychedelic or maybe grunge. It wouldn't be as orderly or as structured, but there are no hard and fast rules here, although it would be really fantastic if you could stick to a template, and I'll show you how to set one up. Now, how you create your mood board, how you structure your grid or collage, also tells me a lot about your style. So make sure you do it in such a way that communicates your style. And remember that everything has to fit into a single page, so you can't have multiple pages. If you have more than one page, that means you haven't narrowed down your ideas enough, and so you need to go back and edit, okay? The next bullet under create your board is theme. Now, make the theme obvious. That's what the mood board is for. Make sure people can really figure out what your mood board is trying to say and what design era you are you are gathering your inspiration from. Not many people are going to be familiar with these past designers. So when you're creating your mood board, we want people to be able to nail down what design era, what was characteristic of that design era. Oh, that's Victorian. There, look at that, the frilly design, the detail in the ads. Look at the typography that they're using, and so on. So that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for. Now, make sure people can, like I said, readily figure out what your mood board's trying to say, but don't make them guess. So if you curated your images properly, this should be easy peasy. You should have this no problem. So just remember, scale back and edit it, fit it on one page, and kind of create your mood board from there, okay? Now, I mentioned fonts and photography and words. I want you to add some text. A bold, powerful word juxtaposed among the images really captures attention and adds drama, just like we see here. You can see the text. There's a section here where there's some font. Even this one in the right, there's 3 boxes where there's text. And this really sets the tone for not only the design where they're pulling their color palette from, but also it's kind of setting the mood. This looks like a wedding based off of the type of font and typography they've chosen. So make sure, don't just include an image because it has the color you want. It should also be in the same style and mood as what you're going for. So you want to include the typography as well. You're going to want to include textures and patterns. This can convey style and mood really eloquently. Look at the circles. The circles were used to create the texture. See the marble here on this left, and then the one on the right is a staircase, but it's showing texture and depth to this design. And now if you want to go organic, like we see here in the far right, you can do an organic look. You can use natural textures like images of paper, leaves, burlap. If you want something glamorous, you can use sparkly glitter metallics. If you want something a little bit more hard-edged or grunge looking or psychedelic, you can try to find more colorful, more hard images to use. But remember to include at least one of the boxes need to have typography. You need your color swatches on there, and you also need images and photography that set the mood. So for my branding clients, I normally create the final inspiration boards for them based on their pins or images that they've supplied. But in this case, you get to set the tone. You get to pick the images and the photography and all of the elements. You're going to gather them into one folder, and then you're going to carefully select the ones that are more in line with the answers to the questions under your assignment 3, as well as the personality of the designer that you've chosen. So I showed you here some mood boards that kind of get some inspiration from it. If you notice, all 4 of these follow the exact same template. Kind of interesting, huh? So once you've created a template, you can then start to create your mood board and then just save every time. So how do we create a mood board? Well, we talked about those elements, and now here is a basic template that all of these follow. So I'll grab a little image and throw it in here next to this template, and you can see how the template is followed. So I'll just expand this and put it side by side so you can see what it looks like. All right, so you see this here. So in this case, this template has 3 across, 3 vertical images on the top, 2 horizontal on the bottom. You have a circle to kind of break it up. It is very structured, but the circle kind of adds a little freestyle to the basic template. And then at the bottom, they've reserved those pink squares for the swatches. This is where the swatches are going to go. Now, does your template have to look just like this? No, it can be more free-flowing if you want it to be. It can be a completely different template. You can Google mood boards to kind of get some inspiration, to kind of figure out what template you would like to use. I picked the most basic one that still looked very professional, and this is the one I'll be demoing today. Your swatches don't need to be as big. As you saw in the student examples, they're not very big at all, but this is a great way to take up space, but also to set the tone and the color scheme for your mood board, okay? All right, so before we jump into the rest of lecture, I want to go over our mood board assignment. So if you would pull up InDesign for me. And we're going to jump right into the tutorial, and then we'll come back and go over more lecture in just a minute. So we've got a lot to cover today. Lots of design projects. Hopefully you're looking forward to this one because this one's a lot of fun. All right, so I've got InDesign pulled up. And like I said, we're going to be including, you're going to scour the internet, use Google, Pinterest, whatever platform you like to use to gather your inspiration. And in this case, I use Google to find. Now, my assignment is going to be inspired by one of the student examples. So the student example on Lester Beale, lots of like primary colors, yellow, blue, green, red, and kind of combined the simple life with, let me show you, kind of combined the simple life with the advertisement. Very straight edges, also did very simple patterns. Most of the black and white designs were included. So I'm going to show you how to place these images here. You're going to start by creating an 11 by 17 document. The mood board does need to be horizontal. So we're going to start off by going to New Document. Give it a minute so it got to pop up. Okay, there we go. All right, so when it opens up, you're going to give it a name. So name it DES 109 _ assignment 3 _ first and last name. And then over here under the width and height, you're going to select 11 by 17. You can choose your orientation, portrait or landscape. However, we're going to be choosing landscape for the first page, then portrait for the poster design, and then portrait for the references page. So for now, set the orientation to landscape, and I'll show you how to change that later. You're going to need 3 pages because the first page will be the mood board, second page will be the poster, third page will be your references, okay? Then we are going to start on page 1. You can set up columns if you wish. It's not necessary. Keep the gutter the same and hit create. Oops, it didn't do landscape. Sorry. All right, so if you already set up your document, I'll show you how to change it. If you go to your window and select Pages, right-click on your first page, and then go to Page Attributes, rotate Spread View 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, so now my view is going to be horizontal. See that? All right. And I think that's it, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to grab our Shapes tool. Our rectangle frame tool is the one we're going to be using to create the template. Remember, hold down Shift if you want a perfect square, or that constrains the proportions, or you can just kind of drag and drop where you want to put your template. I'm using the rectangle frame because this is going to act as an image placeholder. Once I have my frames placed, then I can just flow in my images. It makes for an easier way to lay things out. I'm going to click and drag, hold down Alt Option on your keyboard, and make sure your smart guides are turned on so that they will snap into place when they're evenly spaced, and that you have your rulers and guides turned on so that you know how to line things up accordingly. Everything is lining up the exact same. I have an even amount of space between my boxes. Hold down Alt Option again, and you can click and drag. So I have 2 choices here. I can do a 3 panels here, or I can do 4 small ones. You can do 6. You don't have to use my template. I'm just trying to create. We'll do 4 across. We'll do 4, or maybe stick to the 3. So it's however you want your template to look, but this is a good way to set it up first. Next, I'm going to select all of these, click and drag, and I'm going to place them underneath here. I'm going to make sure these are the exact same width as the columns. All right, and then I'm going to set this to landscape. There we go. I'm going to clear my rotation. I'm going to go to custom and click on landscape here. Okay. Oops. Okay. All right, and now oops, sorry guys. All right, I lost my place. Got it. Okay. Now once I have my boxes laid out, I'm going to hold down on the rectangle frame. I'm going to click the ellipse frame tool. I'm going to hold down shift as I click and drag to create my circle frame. And then I'm going to delete this third one over here, and I'm just going to expand these all the way over to the margin line. I'm using the margin line as kind of a guide, and I'm going to kind of bring them up a little so that there's enough room to create my swatches. My swatches don't need to be very big. So I'm just going to kind of click and drag a square. Click and drag. Hold down your Alt Option. Make sure you see how the green rulers kind of tell me it's evenly spaced. That's what I'm looking for. All right, and then I'm going to drag these over. It's kind of my swatches designed. Okay, so now I'm going to open up my folder that I created earlier. This has all of the images that I plan on using, all of the textures, and I'm going to start placing my images. Now you'll probably have to play around a little bit with it, but overall this should be pretty fun. So I'll click on my first frame. I'm going to go to File, Place. I'm going to find my folder. And these are just images that I selected earlier. So I'm just going to open these. Remember, once you've placed an image, you won't be able to see the entire image. If you double click on it, you'll see this brown squared frame. What this means is there's still more image that you can't see and things get cut off. So what you can do is either fit it proportionally, or you can double click and move it around where you want to feature. So in this case, I do want some text and I do want his image. So I'm going to kind of bring this down, and I like that texture of that black and white. So I'm going to kind of move it around in there, but I don't want his chin to get cut off. So I'm going to kind of raise him up from that circle. Okay, next frame, go to File, Place. And this is after you've already selected images. Go find the next design. And I'm going to kind of move this down. And then the next one, File, Place. kind of place it there. I'm going to right click on it. It's a little blurry. Display performance. Click on high quality display. There you go. All right, so now I've got these three placed here. This circle, I'm going to place an interesting pattern that I saw. I'm going to double click on the image so I can get this pinwheel. This was part of one of his ad designs that I really liked. So I'm going to kind of get that increased a little bit. Okay, once that's placed, we'll work on the look of it in just a minute. Let's see. Okay, and then the next one, file place. Most of these are vertical layouts, but what I'm going to do is instead of feature the image, I'm going to feature the pattern and the font, the text, the font choice here. Okay, and then click on the other rectangle frame, click place. If there's anything else that I want to include. I definitely want to include him in there. And I'm wondering if I'm going to switch these. Once you have them placed, you can kind of play around with what would look better. I'm going to put this guy here because I want to show him off. I want to feature him more. And it has his name in there, so that's kind of cool. Or I could just forget his name and then just kind of get him jumping off. I want to get those, I want to capture those colors. I don't want any words to be cut off, so I'm going to make sure that I can fit that into the frame. Still going to get cut off, so let's bring it up a little bit more. There we go. This shows movement. It also shows the design characters, the sharp edges. And then I'm going to go over here and fill the frame again. Hit open. Okay, now that everything is placed, I'm going to right click and go to display performance, click on high quality display. That will help me see what my images look like right now. And I really want to make sure my spacing is even. I could just feature this pattern that he uses quite a bit. Okay, I've got typography, I've got texture, I've got different patterns that he uses. I've got him featured in some of these ads. I also need to make a headline, and my headline is going to be his name. So I'm going to grab my type tool. I'm going to click and drag. You could go all the way across, or you can choose to just do here in the corner. So what I'm going to do is grab a white rectangle. I'm going to click and drag. Actually, I'm going to back up for just a minute. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and draw a blue box. I'm going to copy his style. I'm going to use his color palette here. And You could choose to angle it. He does a lot of play on angles. Can kind of angle it a little bit. And but before I angle it, I'm going to grab the type tool, type his name. And because it's a dark background, I need to use a white font. So it'll show up, and then I need to make the font a lot larger. And he uses a sans serif in his designs, so that's what I'm going to do. He uses sans serif as well. Probably just as simple Helvetica should do. And I'm going to make sure this is bold. And I'm going to increase the size just a little bit. All right, now that I have it, I'm going to center it within this blue box, make sure everything's centered. And then I'm going to rotate them. It's just off at an angle, not a huge angle. I still want it to be readable. And then I'm going to extend this blue bar all the way across. So this is kind of what it looks like. I could choose to bring that in a little bit. All right, so I kind of mimicking his designs. Everything was kind of off. He's straight edges, lots of shapes. And then here at the bottom is where I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to gather the color swatches for my design. So he uses a lot of red. That's going to be one. A lot of primary colors, blue. He uses yellow or orange. In this case, maybe yellow. I've seen him use green, so we'll set that to the primary color, green. And he even uses a little bit of black. So this is my mood board. So I grabbed my images. I've got the 3 images at the top here. I've got an image of him. I've got the text, because the typography that he used, it was all sans serif, so that was interesting. He used straight edges. I put the headline up here. I could have just made it go straight. You don't have to angle it. Like this, and it could go across. So this is another way that we could have set it up. So it's up to you how you want to design. But this is a very cool way. Now, with this circle frame, we're going to want to add a white stroke to it. So add a white stroke, and I'll give it about 3. Maybe. There we go. There you go. All right, so I've got my texture, my shapes, my typography. Whoops, this one needs to be black. He uses black and white a lot. And I include that color scheme. So there you go. That's how you create a mood board. Now it's super helpful if you can create your template before you start placing your images. Now this is a more structured way of doing things, and it's a little different than the example you saw in the student example, but this is a really simple, basic template to start out with. Make sure you save it. So that is page 1. Now we're going to go to page 2. This is our poster design. Now we're going to be taking our inspiration based off of our poster or mood board, okay? Are there any questions so far about the mood board, about how to design it, how I achieve the template? Any questions? Does it seem pretty simple, or should I back up? All right, let's continue. before we take our break. We're going to go ahead and get our poster set up. Luckily, we've already set up our files, so all we need to do is the actual design part. Okay, you've got your pages open. So using this mood board, I'm going to take the colors that were used here. I'm actually going to change this color to this orange. That matches a little bit better. There we go. So now I'm going to take my inspiration and I'm going to create. So first thing I notice is he uses a lot of really cool patterned backgrounds, either the polka dots or the stripes across. So I'm going to take the stripes as kind of is the inspiration for the background image. But I'm going to do something that's a little bit easier to read. So I'm going to use the student's example that we saw, and I'm going to grab a rectangle tool. I'm going to create a simple pattern. I'm going to go up here and use my eyedropper tool with the rectangle selected, and I'm going to click on the color that I want to copy. And I'm going to hold down Alt Option, and I'm going to, with my Smart Guides turned on, I'm going to wait till it tells me that everything is evenly spaced. Like this. There we go. All right. And then I'm going to kind of make these a little smaller. So there's some texture there. I'm going to lighten the opacity on these. I don't want them to be very, well, I guess we could use red even. Let's use red. I'm going to go into, there we go. So I've got my striped background, and now I need to add the text from the document that they provided. So I'm going to grab my text, I'm going to draw a text box, paste the text in there, and I'm going to format it. So he used a sans serif font. So I'm going to use that same font that I was using here. It's already formatted, so it saves you time. Use your eyedropper tool to grab those properties. Okay, and now we're going to lay out the text. I'm going to make the text black so that you can see it. I'm going to change this to something a little bit more narrow, more of a condensed bold, I think, be more appropriate. There we go. All right. Now I'm going to bring up this all in one line. There we go. That. And I'm going to place it in between this box here so it's even between the two. And then I'm going to draw a solid rectangle, which will be my secondary color. Got black and red, and red's too harsh on the eyes, so I'm going to grab another primary color. I grab blue. Hold still. Oops. Oh, forgot to select it. Select it, then go to your eyedropper tool, and then select the blue. And then in my swatches, I'm going to just add it so I have it. Okay. I was going to use green, but we don't want it to look like it's Christmas. So I'm going to just do the blue and the red. This looks very American. These are the American colors that he uses. I'm also going to feature shapes that he uses, very straight edge shapes. I'm going to make these a different color, probably yellow. This will add contrast. I'm also going to hold down the shape and draw a circle, click and hold shift. Notice how my Spark Guides turn on and they tell me these shapes are the exact same size. So I will stop there. And then I'm going to click on my polygon tool, click once outside the artboard, and then it will ask you how you want to proceed. I'm going to do number of sides being 3, and this will help me create my triangle. I'm going to line it up as best I can here. Hold down Shift, I'm going to click and drag. Make sure everything is lined up. And I'm going to center this circle right where the center of the gutter is. There we go. All right, so there's our shapes. There's the shapes they used. He used in here the circle, the dots. I've got the striped background. I've got the color palette already set up. Okay, so my shapes are set up, and now I'm going to place the rest of my text. I'm using a little bit different color scheme that was used in the example. I'm going to paste this. I'm going to use the exact same font that I'm using, but to create hierarchy, the headline I want to feature. That's going to be the largest message. The one below it is going to be smaller, so it's not going to be the same size. I'm going to go smaller. And because dark on dark is very hard to read, I'm going to change this to a reverse text. So we're going to use white. And to create contrast, I'm not going to make all of these names the same weight. I'm going to change the names of the designers to a condensed so that they're not quite so, so the featured work by stands out. And then I'm going to do a more black condensed, so this is more heavy. Okay, and notice how it's lined up. If I were to grab my ruler here, notice how my text box at the top is lined up, my shape is lined up, and my text box here on the left is all lined up. So there's this perfect vertical ruler line that I'm following. I don't want anything going, and use your margin box too to kind of act as a guide for this. With this place, I'm going to grab the other content. I want to highlight this and click on the font. Now, if you're working in columns, you're going to want to divide this information up as best you can. Okay, and then the visit information should be small and at the bottom. I'm going to place it going across here. Using my margin line as a guide, I'm going to stop when I get there. This information can be small and at the bottom. It does not need to be very big. And I'm not going to do all caps, so go to type, change case, sentence case is all I need. Actually, type, change case, title case. And then I'm going to do a light. Oh, I don't want to extend it. Let's do a light version of this. There we go. You have two choices here. You can make this extremely small and center it. You can center the headline too if you wanted to, or you can all left justify everything and make sure it just follows within the guidelines. This can stand to be a little larger. You could make it as to extend both columns so that it looks more even and uniform. For balance, you can write justify this text. All right, so I'm going to shift these down a little bit. Now I'm going to go back to my mood board for inspiration. He's got a lot of lines that he uses, black lines, arrows. So I could do the same thing. I could create a little design. I'll move this down. I'm going to grab my ruler so that this acts as the baseline so I can line up my information. Now I could create a really cool, there's a lot of things you could do here with this designer. He uses really cool design techniques, but you could grab your pencil tool and you could draw some lines. And I could change these to black. Just as a kind of way to highlight. It doesn't look as good. So another thing I'm going to do is grab my rectangle tool, or my line tool. I could draw a line here. I'm going to use black. I'm going to turn off my fill, and on my stroke, I'm going to go to Window, click on Stroke, and this will bring up my stroke box, and I can customize my stroke here. I want a heavier weight. The type, I like the dotted is interesting because he uses different textures and the dots. And you can choose to do a start or an end. So if you wanted to end it, you could use a triangle width. And I think I'm going to use that because he used a lot of cool, interesting shapes. All right. I'm going to make this white. This black doesn't stand out as well. So this is an interesting visual piece that I created just by simply using the artboard as inspiration. So I use this dotted line. This is a great way to kind of add some visual interest. I'm going to also draw another line. I want to create some kind of a connection. And I'm going to copy that formatting, except I'm going to turn off the endpoint. And I'm going to make sure these arrows line up at the starting point. Use your arrow on your keyboard to get more precise. So this is kind of interesting. So this is kind of a little play off of what the student's example was, but this is even more, it gives something to look at. It directs your eye. And I think this really works. Another thing I can do, I can kind of add a little bit more to this pattern. There we go. Notice how my smart guides automatically tell me if I'm lining things up or not. Okay, so there you go. There is my design. It can feel a little busy. I can even take these off, but then it feels a little small. So it's up to you, but just kind of play around with the design and how you want to convey your designer's layout. I like this a lot, and this would be good to go. So now I have my mood board. I have my poster based off of that color scheme. And then I'm also now going to include my references. Now your references you'll type out on a Word document, but you can include it in here. Kind of place your text here. So websites, links, any sources for inspiration or content go here. Photo credits, etc. This is where all this will go. Okay. Are there any questions about how to do this assignment? So we've kind of tackled it from start to finish. We did our mood board template, our poster design, based off of my designer. And then we also added some websites and links here. Any questions at all? All right, last but not least, we're going to be creating our, I think we're going to do, I think it required you to submit a PDF. So I'm going to show you how to do a multi-page PDF when you're done with your assignment. So let's go to the top here. Say you're all done with your assignments. Go to New, go to Document, or I'm sorry, not New Document. We're not setting up a new document. We're going to Adobe PDF Presets, smallest file size. And then you'll just name it, hit save, save it where you'll remember. Make sure the smallest file size is selected. All right, and then you can click on all, and I think that's everything that we'll need. So then hit export, and it will create your multi-page document. That one document is what you're going to submit into Dropbox, okay? Any other questions? That was quite a bit to cover, but hopefully you feel inspired, feel like this will be a simple assignment, not quite so overwhelming. I think we covered everything that we needed, our mood board, our poster, and submit the PDF, and that's it. All right, so we're gonna go to our break, our 10-minute break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the assessment 3. We're gonna be shift gears a little bit. We're gonna be in Photoshop. We're gonna be creating our Photoshop ad. And I will see you guys in 10 minutes. All right, so we are back. Are there any questions before we begin? We're going to jump right back into our design for assessment 3. We're going to be creating the Photoshop ad. And let me pull up Photoshop real quick. Just wanted to find out if there were any questions as we go through this. All right. So Photoshop, you'll notice as you go through InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop, they all have similarities. Similarities with their toolbar, similarities with artboards, and similarities with where you can find and locate certain tools and effects. Each one will have its own little unique set of tools and effects, but for the most part, there is a good amount of crossover. So it's not a learning curve every time you open a program. Photoshop does operate very differently from Illustrator. You don't have your direct selection tool or your selection tool. Instead, you have this move tool that we'll be using. And if you hold it down, there's an artboard tool that you can create artboards. What we're going to do is start out by creating our Photoshop document. So we're going to start out by File, New Document, same as Illustrator or InDesign. And again, it's thinking. I've got a million programs open, so please bear with me. All right, so you'll give it a title, you'll name it. So this is DES 109, Assessment 3. And then you'll have your first and last name. The width will be 1200 pixels and the height will be 628. You can choose your orientation, either vertical or landscape. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do a landscape design. You can change it later on. You'll select check the box that says artboards. It'll make sure this is pixels per inch. And then you can keep it as RGB color. That's fine. In fact, that's what we prefer for the web. And then you could just hit create. So this is what you'll end up with. So this right now is just a single artboard. The neat thing about Photoshop is that you can create multiple artboards in one document, which is what you're going to need to do for the assignment upload. So you're going to hold down this on the first tool on your toolbar, which is your move tool. Hold down, there is an artboard tool, and we are going to select that. What we're going to do is we're going to click on our artboard, and you'll notice how there's 4 plus signs within circles that kind of appear on each edge of the page. Now, depending on where you click the plus sign, an artboard will either appear to the left, an artboard can either appear to the right, or directly above it. So in this case, we'll just 1, 2, 3. Now, if we need to resize an artboard, we've got our properties box right here. Now, in this case, say one of the ads we wanted to make vertical instead of horizontal. You will just simply grab your artboard tool, and you can kind of make it more in a vertical way. Now, to make sure we have it the exact same size, we want the dimensions to be correct. The artboard was 4 by 2.9 inches. So in this case, we're going to select this artboard, and we're going to make sure that this says 4 by 2.9. All right. So now it's the exact same size. Or actually, let's double check this. 4 by 2.9. And then this one is also 4 by 2.9. Okay, perfect. So we've got the right dimensions. And now we can proceed. So the first design that I'm going to do is, you were given 3 different, let me pull up the assignment so we can talk about that. So this is for the assessment. We are designing in Photoshop. You will have 3 ads to design, and they're going to be different industries. One is a fitness club. In this assessment, you're also going to, one's a budget travel website, and the other is a grocery delivery service. So you're going to need to create images to accompany 3 social media posts for the following 3 clients. So each client is going to be a different industry, a different type of company. There you're given a message to include, and you're also given the dimensions. So, and there are links under the assessment to where you can grab some free photography for your artboards. But let me show you a quick template. We're all about templates today because by creating a template, you can actually duplicate a design. So in this case, I'm going to delete my artboards. I don't need these. So I'm going to click on artboard 1, or I'm sorry, artboard 3. I'm going to delete. Artboard 2, delete. Just for now. So now let's focus on doing the fitness club. I'm not going to design all of them just for sake of time, but what I am going to do is go grab, okay. So what you want to do is find an image. You would probably want a fitness image or something that's someone working out in a gym. And then you're going to place it in here. What we're going to do is go to File. I'm going to open. And then we're going to go find the image that I have. All right. Let's see. Hang on one second. I gotta see where I saved it. It might still be in my downloads folder, actually. Yes, it is. Okay. So we're gonna pull it into Photoshop. Again, it's doing a lot of thinking. We're gonna place the image first. We're gonna figure out where we're gonna put it. So I am going to use this photo that you saw in the student example. This was found on pexels.com, so you can go there. Once you've placed it, you'll hit save, and then it'll ask you if you want to place it. You'll hit yes. You'll save it. And then what I'm going to do is start creating my design. So once it's finished saving, I'm going to go to my shapes tool, and I'm going to grab my, or I'm not going to do my shapes tool, I'm sorry, my pen tool, right kind of halfway down the bottom of the toolbar. And this pen tool is really cool because if you hover over it, it shows you what the pen tool is meant to do. It makes changes to paths or shapes with an anchor point and handles. So we're going to select that. And I'm not going to do any fancy curves because those are a little more complicated, but I am going to start at the top left of my artboard. And I'm going to go across here, hold down Shift to create a very sharp, straight edge. I'm going to come down here at an angle, hold down Shift. Whoops, no. And hold down Shift for the straight lines and come back to your original point. All right, so now I've got this image posted. I'm going to go to my picture and I'm going to pull it over because I just want to feature him. I'm going to go to my shape. And I think I'm going to redraw that. So I'm going to delete this one more time. I want it a little whiter. So I kind of want to go here, here, and back over. Okay. So now that I've selected or I've drawn my shape, if you want to pick a color, you can double click on your color picker to pick a shape or a color. Or you can go to your fill box. So once you've drawn your shape, hit save. There you go. You can create a different color, keep it black, keep it gray. I'm going to keep it gray. And I'm also going to add some noise. So I'm going to go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. And this is going to, I'm going to, yes, rasterize it. And this will help me create a little bit of texture in the background. Oops. Try it again. Filter, Noise, Add Noise. Okay, that's enough texture. That's all I need there. And then what I'm going to do is grab my, you can either do it with the pen tool or grab your shapes tool and click on the rectangle tool. And I'm going to use these grids to kind of guide where I'm placing my rectangle. I kind of do it right here. This rectangle, though, I want to create a different color. So I'm going to create more of a yellow. And I'm going to resize it so I can go to Edit, Free Transform, and this will help me kind of resize it down. I don't need it quite so big. Okay, and then I'm going to do a little visual design. Hit Apply. Don't forget to save your work. I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. Oh, and one quick note. Once you're done drawing, you're going to want to create a new layer here at the bottom for the next element, because if you create it on the same layer, you're going to, editing it's going to get tricky. So we want each element to be on their own layer. So we're going to grab a circle, hold down Shift as you click and drag, and we want this to be kind of even. I'm going to move this over. And I want to make sure my smart guides are turned on so this lines up. And then I'm going to hold down Alt Option and click and drag. I'm going to create a second circle. The only thing is with this circle, I'm going to create that same yellow. And I'm going to go to Edit, Save, go to Edit. Free Transform. I'm going to resize it. Hold down Shift as you're clicking down. I'm going to center it within this circle. I want that nice gray border around it. Hit Apply. I could even do a second circle. Duplicate this. Just choose that gray. Go to Edit, Resize. Shrink that down. That's kind of interesting. I'm going to do that layer. Hit Apply. And then within this circle, I can go and create that noise again to match that background. Add noise. Hit OK. So now, and then I'm going to go back to my other gray circle in the background on the next layer and do the same thing. It's just giving it the same texture that I gave the square that I drew. I hit OK. All right, so now it has the same texture, and that's kind of what I'm going for. All right, now that I've got my basic elements drawn and my picture placed, I'm going to add the text on the assessment. The message is already given to you, so you don't come up with your own. We're not writing our own copy. We are just going to use what's given to us. So the message for the fitness club is find your superpower. Join today for $5, limited time only. So notice how they're separated with semicolons. We're going to just use that as natural breaking points in the text. So I'm going to grab my type tool and I'm going to put that text in. Find your superpower. And so I'm going to do 2 lines. I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to make sure this is white. And then I'm going to give it a large font size. I'm going to expand this. Oh, not quite so large. Now, if there is a preset that is too small or too big, you can always manually enter it in. So 20 seems good. And then I'm holding down Alt Option and using my down and up arrow keys to adjust my leading between the space between the words. And then for contrast, I'm going to use a regular weight and then a heavy weight here. And I could probably stand to go a little bigger. I'll expand my type box. Photoshop really is easy to use once you can get the hang of it. It makes you can do some really cool stuff with it. So I'm going to line it up on this baseline here. I actually could probably go a little smaller. We probably don't need to go quite as big, so I'll go 22. Find your superpower. Okay, and then I'm going to also make this the yellow in the ad. Cancel. I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool. And I'm going to select that yellow. Just double click it. It will change. The top part, though, I'm going to keep white because that's a lot of yellow. I don't want to go crazy with it. Hit OK. So we're adding contrast here, not only using color, but shape. I used a very straight edge versus a circular object. The cylinder in the punching bag is also kind of adding contrast. We've got the black and white image, but we're using that yellow as a pop of color. All right, so find your superpower is the next, is the first message. Then join today for $5 is the next message. I'm going to grab my type tool, paste, and then I'm going to shrink down the font size a little bit. I'm going to make this the gray. I'm going to do a darker gray, I think. So it's easier to read. The darker the font. I could even go black if I wanted to. Black's a little harsh. We'll go dark charcoal. All right, I'm going to take off this $5 because I'm going to make this nice and big. And I'm going to put the $5 in the circle to kind of feature it, which will add as a nice visual, stylistic element that will add some visual interest. Join today for 15.5. Okay. So that's nice. And then I'm going to just paste my, I'm going to draw another type tool in that circle. Pasted, and I'm going to set this font to yellow font color. Just double click to get it. Oh, if it's not showing up, then you have to move that layer to the top. There it is. Tricky thing about layers is if you don't see it, it usually means it's hiding behind another layer. So I'm going to grab this yellow that I want to copy it with. Double click, hit OK. And now I want to make the number nice and big. We're trying to, the important message here is the headline is nice and big because it's trying to grab your attention. Find your superpower. But the $5 is a very important message because that's going to be the call to action. Join today is the call to action, but the $5 is the real message here. You mean I can join a gym for $5? So this is what we want to feature. This is what we want to stand out and make big. We want this nice headline, but we also want the price to stand out. And notice how I'm using a regular weight versus a heavy weight. This is also adding contrast to our design. So not only are we adding contrast with color, font weight, we are also adding contrast with shapes, the straight edges versus the circular, and then image versus text. This is a great balance. We've got alignment here. And then the next part of this message is just going to be limited time only. And now that's not, while that's not very important, it's going to just be small print. It's not the star of the show, so we don't want to feature, and usually any fine print is usually small anyways. And we'll just make sure we select the right color this time around. Hit OK. I want to make this extremely small. And it's going to be a light text. And I'm going to go to join today, and I'm going to bring this down because I want everything to line up really nice. Join today, and then limited time only. And then I'm going to resize it a little bit. Kind of center it in there, using that grid to kind of follow so that everything's lined up. I'm going to go to find your superpower. I want to make sure this is also lined up on that baseline grid. All right, so there is my design. Now I have done one for the fitness. Now if I were to add more artboards, remember we hold down the move tool, click on the artboard, and we select the artboard that we want to add to. So we can go 1, 2, 3, and that's what we'll use to create the extra artboards. Now, say that you want to do a vertical layout. Well, we'll just simply resize it and go to the properties over here and put in the dimensions. It's 4 by 2.9. And then I'm going to move this up so that there's space. So if I wanted to do a vertical design versus a horizontal, I could, so that you can kind of change up your layouts a little bit. You're not stuck to that same template. So what I'm going to do is do another little design for us. Oh, I just looked at the clock. It looks like we're running out of time. So this is how we'll do the fitness ad. We don't have time for the other design, but I did want to jump into how to, let's talk about ad hierarchy for a minute, okay? And we're going to kind of shift gears here. So I'm going to close out of here. And I'm going to pull up my slides, so just bear with me for just a minute. So are there any questions at all based off of what we just designed, what we went over? Any questions at all? Does it seem pretty straightforward? If it does, if you have any questions, please come to the multi-session or shoot me an email and we can go over more then. All right, so, oh, you can't see my slides. Let's shift gears here. All right, so now let's talk about ad hierarchy. You often hear me in the grading feedback, or when I start giving grading feedback about your hierarchy. You might have heard me mention that a few times, and to some of you this may be new. So we're going to talk about what is hierarchy. Basically, the more important stuff is at the top, and it's usually larger. The more important message is usually the largest element on the page, or the photography is usually the largest element on the page. So you have your headline, which is the biggest. Then the next biggest is the subheadline. Then you've got your copy, then your logo, then your phone number, then all. And as you move down the list, you're getting smaller and smaller. That's ad hierarchy, because we're directing the eye to what we want to see first. This is contrast. Contrast can be achieved just like you saw in the web design, color versus size. So color is creating contrast. We just did that in the web banner that we designed with the fitness ad. I used color, that black and white color scheme, but the pop of yellow really adds contrast and brings out the message, and it makes things stand out. I also use size, font size, image size. I use size to bring interest. I made the less important information smaller, the more important information I made bigger. Ad hierarchy. So your eyes are directed to a certain point. So look at this image here. This says where we want your eyes to look, right? And then it says, then here. And then at the end it says, isn't that fascinating? Based off of the size of the elements on this page, your eyes were directed to read in order what this designer wanted you to read. So it's really important to place the important messages first, okay? And as you design and get good practice, you'll develop an eye for that. Are there any questions about, it's pretty simple, right? It kind of makes sense. You want the more important information at the top or larger, and then you want the less important information smaller. And in case does anyone know what visual hierarchy means? when you hear ad hierarchy or visual hierarchy? What does that mean? What do you think? Visual hierarchy refers to the arrangement or the presentation of elements in a way that implies importance. So in other words, visual hierarchy influences the order in which the human eye perceives what it sees. This order is created by the visual contrast between forms in a field of perception. So just like you see here, here's an example of this. Read me first. That's the message. That's what we want to grab attention. And then read me next. And then when you got a bit of time, could you please read me? So this is the body text. Usually people don't really read the body text on an ad, so it's usually smaller and off to the side, or it's less important and placed towards the bottom. The headline though, the eye catcher, the call to action is usually the biggest. Then you've got some kind of a sub message or sub headline, and that's usually the next biggest. So as you move down your ad, size decreases because the information becomes less and less important. So first there were stone tablets, papyrus scrolls, and paper, but then came computer screens and electronic tablets. And as the technology to display a page evolves, it really remains the designer's job. That's your job to arrange the content clearly. But what's the best way? What's the best way to arrange content? It would be visual hierarchy, right? Let's use visual hierarchy in fonts. Let's study this a little bit. Making use of a typeface family. Okay, so what do you see? What do you see here? Well, they bolded and made the first line biggest. That's where my eye went first. Then underneath it, it's the same font, but they just changed the weight and the style. They used an italic or an oblique, and they changed the weight to a regular or a light. And then at the bottom, it's the same font, but they just made it smaller and made it a regular font weight. This creates visual hierarchy within your text. It makes it easier to perceive and understand, and it makes you want to read. If this was all the same size, it'd be quite boring and dull, and you wouldn't get anything out of it. But the way that it is designed really captures your attention, and it also creates order and hierarchy. So I was going to have you guys do this as an exercise, but since we're running out of time, we'll probably skip this part. But this might be good for you at home if you're watching. We're going to break down the message. When you're looking at a message, you want to determine what is the most important information. What do we want to feature? If you only got one thing out of it, or you only had 2 seconds to look at an ad, what is the message that you want to take away? And then once you've determined that, that's what you're going to feature, design around. You want to draw all the attention to that specific message. So in this message, it says, "May your Christmas be bright and merry." Excuse me, one second. Sorry. So Christmas and bright and merry are the descriptive words. These are the words that we want to bring focus. So if I were to say, okay, type this into a Word document, I want you to stylize with some hierarchy, visual hierarchy, and I want you to stylize this message. Make it look interesting. How would you do that? What kind of font face would you use? In this case, we've got a sans serif, and it shows the regular version, the italic version, and the bold version. You don't have to use multiple fonts in your ad design. In fact, I only used one, but the way that I created contrast was just simply changing the weight of the font. Changing the weight and the style of the font is a great, easy way of creating contrast without muddling it up with some other fancy fonts. So this is a great way. So choosing your fonts is important. We talked about serif fonts. The serif font's the small line. It's that little tick mark off the edge of your font. It's the end of the glyph, basically. And the typeface with these little lines at the end of their symbols are called serif typefaces. So you can see in red, they all look a little bit different depending on the font family. Just like any family, we all look different. But the serifs have the same little glyph marks at the end. Sans serif, sans means without. So sans serif means without these serifs. And these are pretty straightforward. The typefaces that lack the little lines are called sans serif typefaces. And there's a whole list as you go on. You'll be taking a typography class here pretty soon of just studying fonts and typography alone. So you'll learn to have an eye for the difference, and you'll learn the universal fonts to avoid and the universal fonts that are very, very kind of stand the test of time, so to speak. When you mix typefaces and fonts, the contrast between them will highlight or subdue certain words or parts of the phrase. And this makes the composition visually appealing. So you can mix serifs and sans serifs. So this is a headline, and then underneath it is the body text. So this is usually perceived as elegant, stylish. The white sans serif fonts like Myriad are more subdued and easier to read. So we really want to stick with a very clean font. In this case, they created contrast by using a serif font at the top for the headline, and then a contrasted sans serif font at the bottom. It's a very clean font. So the clean font really highlights and accents this serif font very well. They play a good part together. They're good partners, I should say. So using different font weights and styles. So we just went over this. We kind of see how this can work. So going back to, let's see. Okay, so contrasting display and neutral typefaces. Less is more in this case, so try not to use more than 2 or 3 typefaces. In fact, if you're a very seasoned designer, you could get away with using multiple typefaces, but if you are a beginner at this, I suggest using one. Use one typeface, but explore the weights and the styles within that font family. If you're going to use a bold, heavy, all-cap font for your headline, try using the same font, but just doing a lighter weight and maybe a lowercase to add that contrast. So you don't need multiple typefaces to create contrast. It's just a good way to pair if you need to add a little bit more visual interest. But even seasoned designers, even like myself, we usually stick to 1 to 2 fonts maximum for design. Okay, so when to break it. So this part still stands out even using 2 decorative typefaces. So this is a good example of how to use multiple fonts but still create a message and keep it clean and visually appealing. All right, so I had that exercise. Remember, we were going to go over this a little bit. Go ahead and type in a Word document, "May your Christmas be bright and merry." And here I've circled the important words for you. This is a message that we want to take away. Christmas is bright and merry. All right, so with that said, how would you stylize this in a Word document? You can even do this in InDesign if you wanted to. So basically, this exercise is to create your own typographic design. So take 3 minutes, and I want you to come up with something that emphasizes the word Christmas and de-emphasizes bright and merry. So we want one word to stand out, and we want the other two to be de-emphasized. We don't want them to all be the same size. And I want you to notice how mixing different typefaces with different personalities and point sizes can create a visual hierarchy and composition. So this is actually a fun exercise. So I'll give you just a minute to do that. And then I'll show you the end result, and it's kind of interesting. Basically, what we're trying to do here is make sure that our designs communicate the message appropriately. And when designs are communicating as effectively as possible, you'll really want to shake out all its content, even those forgotten art class concepts like color theory and composition. And you want to use them strategically rather than just sticking to a few favorite or trendy techniques. That's what visual hierarchy is all about, guys. Working with all the resources in your design toolbox using color, contrast, typography, spacing, and other basic principles to organize and prioritize your content. You're telling me as the reader what to look at first, and then you're going to tell me what to look at second, and you're going to tell me what to look at last. By doing this, you're directing my eye, just like we saw here. It says where your eye should look first, where your eye naturally goes second, and then where it goes last, if it even sees it at all. So here are 3 different sizes and font types that help us draw our eye to the specific message that we're trying to feature. So when you go to your assessment 3 and it gives you a message, for instance, like the fitness The message was find your superpower. Join today for $5, limited time. What in there, or limited time only, it looks like. What in there is the important meat and potatoes of the message? What do you want to feature as a designer? Is it find your superpower? Is that the catchy phrase that we want to highlight to grab attention? Or is it the $5 sign-up fee? That's the question. Limited time only, that could be, if you feel that's the important message. Limited time only kind of seems like fine print to me, so it really wouldn't be a big message. But we can either highlight the find your superpower to grab attention, or we can highlight the call to action, which is the join today. And you always want a call to action with your ads. It needs to be a reason why people click, why people call, why people look up more information, visit the website. There's got to be a reason why you want to draw them to your business. So it's usually a sale. It's usually an offer of some sort. So there's always some kind of incentivized message there, and we want to feature that one the most because that is going to drive the traffic. So that is all that we have for today. Going back to our exercise, if yours looks something like this would be an example of how you can highlight the words Christmas, bright, and merry using different fonts, using different sizes. This creates contrast, and it also highlights your message. So I want you to have fun. I want you to include visual ad hierarchy in all of your designs, even your poster. And if you see me give comments about this, you can just refer back to this lecture for any information that you might have missed. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Come see me on Thursday for questions or pass off assignments. I will be here at the same time from 7:30 to 9:30 Mountain Standard Time. All right, we'll see you guys later.